Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Welcome to episode 56. Today, we're talking about film adaptations from page to screen. What makes a story adaptable? I'm Donna Carbone, and I am joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Donna?
I am doing well. I'm doing well in the thick of fall.
I love October. It's my favorite month.
I know. I do too. I love all the Burr months. I'm seeing them called now. September, October, November. I just love the fall. It's a great season.
Yeah, I already have my pumpkins out, and so it's my favorite holiday, like October, Halloween, to decorate, even more so than Christmas. And I love to decorate for Thanksgiving too.
Yeah, I do too. I'm really kind of leaning into it because I'm holding a baby shower for my very first grandchild this month. So lots of fall colors and mums and all of that. I'm loving it.
I love that. And I can't wait to hear what you're going to be called.
Me too. I keep going back and forth and saying, I'm just going to let the baby decide.
We could let our audience decide on Instagram. We could even do like a little poll.
Yeah,
what
we can do
Donna's grandmother named me. So.
Yeah, it's been a big topic of conversation here.
Oh, I love that. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. So what are you reading?
So ironically, I am reading a book that is perfect for today's subject. So this is Sunrise on the Reaping. It is by Suzanne Collins, who is the author of The Hunger Games. This story takes place in between, before the first three that you would think of, The Hunger Games and all of that. And it really focuses on Hamish, the character of Hamish, who is Katniss's mentor in the Hunger Games. And I was just reading an article because the movie is coming out in 2026. They already have amazing people cast. Ralph Fiennes is going to be President Snow, which I just absolutely love. It's going to be incredible. They've got Glenn Close. She is going to be one of the mentors. I can't wait. And it's a perfect book to discuss because we are here to discuss adaptations. But what are you reading right now?
I love this topic. I am reading something so far from adaptations.
Okay.
I'm actually reading a collection of poetry by Mary Oliver called Devotions. And it pulls some of her more famous poems from her whole collection, all the books that she's ever written. I'm a huge fan of poetry. Only recently became a Mary Oliver fan. There's a couple of quotes that I've seen like come through my social media, and they've been written by Mary Oliver. And I'm like, oh, I have to check her out. Like, I think I had only read one poem by her, but I don't know. Lately, I'm in a poetry frame of mind. One of my favorite poets, Sarah Kay, just came out with her second book of poetry. So I read that, and I think that's kind of gotten me into the groove.
Well, I love that. Sometimes, as you said, it's a great time of the year to do that. It's you call them the Burr months, and you start settling in a little bit more at home during October and November and December. So I love that. I may have to pick that up, even though I'm not naturally into poetry. My mother, it killed her that it wasn't something. I mean, I appreciate it. It's just not something that I could ever attempt to do. So I'm so impressed with anyone who can write.
Publish some of my poetry. I love writing poetry. That was probably the first thing I started writing seriously.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to have to post one of your poems on our Instagram page.
Yeah, I can do that.
Or maybe we can actually do a poetry episode and you can teach me how to write poetry.
Yeah, I could do that. That's what I'm doing right now at school with my writers.
Yeah, well, I love that. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this episode because this is a favorite subject of mine. I love a good adaptation. I know
Mhm.
people always say, "Oh, the book was better than the movie," and or the TV show, and I always, most of the time, I do agree.
Yeah.
But there are some adaptations that just go one step further. So
Mhm.
we're going to talk about what makes a good adaptation, and then we're going to start sharing a few of our favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this topic as well. I actually co-wrote the curriculum for a course at the high school where I teach called
Mhm.
Reading Literature, Reading Film. And so we do a lot of this. We do a lot of like pairing literature with the movie versions and, talking about the choices that the director made and, which we like more, why do we like one over the other. So I can debate this topic a lot.
Okay, well, let's get into it because you said you did this research and you said roughly between 30 to 50% of major films, especially in Hollywood, are
Mhm.
adaptations, with novels being the most common source material. And that sounds right about, that number does sound natural. But when I explain this to my children, they're shocked. They're like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean this was a book?" And, it shocks them every time. I'm like, most of the things you see on screen can be a source material, not just from books, but from comic books,
Yeah.
video games. Like one of the biggest TV shows right now is on HBO, and it's based on a video game,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm watching that show.
The Last of Us.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, zombies.
First season I loved, the second season not so much.
Yeah, but that one is what we're gonna talk about soon. It
Mhm.
very much goes with the storyline. They did not deviate. They're very
Yeah.
much going strict by the video game.
Right.
So let's keep talking. So some novels come with built-in stories and sometimes built-in audiences. Genres
Mhm.
like crime thrillers, historical drama, romance, which I'm always a fan of, and young adult fantasy are especially popular for
Mhm.
adaptations.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons, we talk about this in class too. One of the reasons that so many films are made from novels is because of that built-in audience. They already have a fan base, and they're in it to make money because films cost so much more to make than novels do to write. That any little help they can get in terms of a fan base is good for their film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so there are different types of adaptations.
Mhm.
So you have a tight adaptation and a loose adaptation.
Right.
Okay, Donna, give me what a tight adaptation, what does that entail?
Okay, so a tight adaptation adheres pretty closely to the novel, to the chronological nature of the novel, faithful to the character development, um, and i- you can really pair them very closely,
Mhm.
whereas a loose adaptation takes liberties.
Yes.
And you find that a lot with like if a Shakespeare play has been made into a movie like um 10 Things I Hate About You was a Shakespeare play, right? And they're pretty lengthy, so they have to cut them down. Hamlet, there's been many films have been made of Hamlet. Hamlet, if it's performed in a tight fashion, it takes over 4 hours. There is actually one film adaptation of Hamlet that is 4 hours. So most of it, the directors have to decide, how do we want to portray Hamlet? What are the scenes that we can do without? And so they'll cut from those those books pretty significantly when it goes to the script. There are others that they just, are very open to interpretation and they lean heavily into that. And so they're loosely based on a novel.
Yeah. And one of the loose base, and this was something that I didn't know when I originally saw the movie back in the 90s, was
Mm.
Clueless.
Mhm.
Clueless is exactly what this is. It was based off of Emma, correct?
Yeah. Mhm. Yep. Yep. And I mentioned 10 Things I Hate About You, were it was Taming of the Shrew.
I gotta say, I have not seen that movie.
You
I have read
haven't?
Taming of the Shrew because that Taming of the Shrew was one of the I hate to say it, when I was in high school, was one of the few Shakespeare that I actually enjoyed. I did
Yeah.
enjoy Taming of the Shrew. So I've got to add that because, I mean, Heath Ledger, I love Heath Ledger. So
That was a huge movie, and a lot of kids know that because I teach film, I have like 2 file cabinets full of movies.
yeah,
That's one they always wanna watch.
really. Huh,
Yeah. Yeah, even today. Mhm.
that is amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk about what are some characteristics that make good novel the adaptations. Like if
Yes.
you're a writer and you're thinking to yourself, you know what, one day I might want this to be adapted to film. What are some things that you should be thinking of as a writer in order to make your novel easily adaptable?
Well, as someone who has written a novel, who, an adaptation would be every, writer's dream. That is something that for me, I wrote my book and I could see it as a movie, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. I could visualize, and I can still, when I go back and read a page, I see what I was writing.
Hmm.
But I think the most important thing, as with any story, is you have to have something, the stakes. You
Hmm.
have to put a character or a town or a community or an imaginary world. There has to be an instigating factor, something that starts off the story. And it needs to be, it doesn't have to be completely original because, there's only so many ideas out there, but you have to grab the audience attention. And along with that is you have to build a strong character that they can either root for or they can
Hmm.
root against, because you sometimes some of the best characters out there are characters that are not good, but yet the audience still somehow in a weird way is rooting for them.
Yeah, I think it's that nugget of humanness to them, even if they're an antagonist,
Yes.
that we need to connect to. And something else that I think is super important is pacing.
Yes.
That you have to make sure that your novel is written tightly enough and with enough conflict, tension, resolution, conflict, tension. So your readers continue turning the page because you need to keep the attention. You need to hold the attention for 2 hours of these viewers who are going to be watching this movie.
Or longer if you're with a streamer and they want to make your book
Do a
into
limited
an
series.
entire season. But I
Mhm.
also think one of the most important things is your setting,
Yeah.
whether it be, like my book takes place in Kentucky. Your first book takes place at a beach. And but like
Mhm.
one reason I was so into the Hunger Games, which is why I'm reading this book, it
Mhm.
was her world building,
Yeah.
because there's so much detail, and it's kind of a dystopian future kind of scenario. And that's what drew me in as much as anything, were the districts in Pan Am. So I think that world building is as important as your characters.
Yeah. Yeah, and people often associate world building with just fantasy, and it's
Yeah.
not. It's
No.
really creating atmosphere no matter where you are, no matter what your setting is. Um, the other thing that I think is super important is themes that are universal and connectable.
Yes.
So even, if we're watching something like, um, I don't know, Star Wars, where, that's not something that is that's a science fiction. That's not something that literally is happening right now, but there are fundamental themes in that we connect to, and
Yes.
we connect to those characters. We connect to the situations in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, why don't we talk about some of our favorite adaptations? Are you ready to do
Yeah.
this, Donna?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to pull up is, what is your all-time favorite adaptation from a book?
So, one of my all-time favorites is The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. I read this book. I also read the prequel, which I liked better than the actual book, Little Altars Everywhere. Um, I just fell in love with these characters. I also used them as inspiration for my first novel, for that like close
Yeah.
knit group of dysfunctional women. Um, And I resisted watching the movie for a long time because I didn't want it to ruin the book for me. But
Yeah.
when I watched it, I thought the cast was so masterfully done.
Yeah, because that has Sandra Bullock in it, and I think Ashley Judd.
Yeah, it has Ashley Judd. It has
Is it Maggie
Maggie
Smith?
Smith is in
Yes.
it. And I'm trying to think of the older um
Oh, is it Ellen
woman.
Bernstein? I believe.
Ellen Burstyn.
Yes, I believe she was the
Burstyn.
mother. Yeah, I think she was the
Yeah.
older Ashley Judd in that.
Yeah, James Garner is in it. He's
Yeah.
the father. Um, it really is just a brilliant cast, and I thought they did a great job. And that is one adaptation that I could watch over and over and over again
Yeah.
and not get tired of it.
Yeah. Well,
Which, yeah.
for me, it's The Age of Innocence, and I've talked about this book. I read this book once a year. I love it. This was directed by Martin Scorsese. It very much, they do not deviate. It's a very tight adaptation.
Mhm.
I loved Countess Olenska. I loved everything about this movie, and it's one of those that if it's on, along with Armageddon, which is not a great movie, but it's comfort movie. I will always watch it, and I love it. It's a love story of, two people that are in love but can't show it. It's in the 18th century. It's the Gilded Age, which is my new favorite TV show on HBO. I just love everything about not only the adaptation but the book.
Yeah.
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 So let's go to our next one.
Okay.
Best classic. So what are your best classics?
So I have two up here. If I'm looking at a pairing, I think Mrs. Dalloway and the Hours is absolutely amazing. So Mrs. Dalloway was written by Virginia Woolf, and it's about the day in the life of a middle-aged woman. Michael Cunningham took Virginia Woolf's writing of that story and made it part of his book called The Hours, that parallels the lives of three women, Virginia Woolf, and two other women that are in a similar situation. And I pair those in my class when I teach them because I just think they're such a good companion piece. So put that aside. The first movie that I ever fell in love with was Gone with the Wind. And it was something I used to watch it with my grandmother. It came on once a year
Yes.
because it was always like a 2-night thing. It was
was an
over 4
event.
hours,
Yeah.
right? But I just love the characters in that movie. And I really do think that movie is in part responsible for me wanting to be a storyteller because I just loved Scarlett O'Hara
Yeah.
and Rhett Butler.
A character who is not good, but
Yeah.
yet you do root for her.
Yeah.
So for me, I chose The Godfather
Mhm.
and The Shawshank Redemption. The Shawshank Redemption, a lot of people don't realize it's like a
Mm.
short story written, or a novella written by Stephen King. Now, most people would be like, "What? There's no way!" But they adapted it into a much longer version. I think it's
Yeah.
one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life, and I
It's also called Rita Hayworth
yes,
and The
and the
Shawshank
yeah,
Redemption. So
because
it's not just Shawshank.
yes, but Rita Hayworth plays a very big, important role. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but there is a
Yeah.
poster that comes to play. And then The
Mhm.
Godfather. I mean, I don't know if there's a better movie out
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
It's another comfort movie. My husband walked in the other day and he was like, "You're watching Godfather again?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." So let's talk about our most recent favorite.
So, my most recent favorite is All the Light We Cannot See, which is a book by Anthony Doerr, and I think he is just a wordsmith. He is just a beautiful writer. Um, I read his books, and I'm just in awe of the way that he uses his diction and his syntax. And that was another one that I was a little nervous to watch, but it was wonderful. Mark Ruffalo plays the father's role, and then they hired his daughter in the book is blind, and they actually hired a blind actress who was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Highly recommend if you haven't seen it. It was great.
Yeah, out of all of these movies and these books, that's the only one that I have not either read the book or have seen the movie. So I do need to
Oh,
add that to my list. And of course, and I've talked about it a couple of
Yeah.
times on this podcast, my favorite is The Hunger Games. I'm sorry. I think it was very well done. I didn't love the third movie because what they do in a lot of these movies with books that are
Mhm.
have several, they have 3 books, but they make 4 movies. And sometimes there's just not enough to warrant that. And I'm going to
Right.
be talking about that here in just a second. But
Yeah.
I love The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
So here we go. Our least favorites.
Yep. Unpopular opinion, I know. Daisy Jones and the Six. This is a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I think we just talked about it last episode. It's written in an interview style of a band and the various, players in the band. Very loosely based on Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
And they made it into a streaming series. I quit it after the 3rd episode. It was ruining it for me because I just didn't buy into. I think it was the casting. I
Yeah.
think it was the casting.
So I
And
did not.
I like Riley Keough,
Yeah.
who played the main role. It just wasn't what I pictured in my head at all.
Yeah. I did not read the book, but I did
Mhm.
watch the series.
Yeah.
And I thought it maybe could have been half as many episodes, but I
Yeah.
loved the story. I loved the music. I downloaded some of those songs and I
Mhm.
still sing them in my car because, I'm a wannabe karaoke singer. So it's so funny because I guess maybe because I hadn't read the book, I
Right.
didn't have that expectation.
Right.
Yeah. So my least favorite, don't judge, but I did
I
read all
know.
the Twilight books back in the
Mhm.
day,
Mhm.
and the first couple of movies were fine. I felt that they
Mhm.
kind of really went along with the book, and then they did the cardinal sin of trying to make 2 movies out of 1, and that
Mhm.
last movie, I just sat there and I'm like, "Ugh." I can't. I've only watched it maybe twice. I can't do it. It ruined it for me, and I do like the other earlier movies, so that was
Yeah,
my least
you know
favorite.
what? The Twilight series was a fan fiction based on Wuthering Heights, which is my favorite book of all time. And so I had students, I had teachers, I had friends telling me, you have to read this book, you have to read this book. I read the book and I just didn't like the writing. I hate to sound like a book snob, but I just didn't think it was well written. So I didn't even venture into the
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
But I know that they're hugely popular.
Hugely popular, and I
Yeah.
wasn't, team Edward or team
Mhm.
Jacob. I wasn't like that, but I did read it
Yeah.
because there was someone in my life, she was a young reader, and I thought I would try to connect with her on that, and then
Mhm.
after the first book, you kinda get sucked in. So,
Mm. Mhm.
okay, so we only have a little bit more time, so
Okay.
we're gonna do this one really quick. Our best streaming series. So Donna and I both have the exact same one. Donna?
Yeah, I love the Game of Thrones. Again, you know what? I wasn't a fan of the book, The Game of Thrones. I tried to read it. It was just too dense for me with names and places that I couldn't pronounce, couldn't keep them straight in my head. And so I thought just for the heck of it, I'm going to watch the series. Oh, I was hooked to that. Like that's a series I want to watch again. That's how
Yeah.
much I loved it.
Well, so what I did is I watched the series, and then I read,
Mhm.
the first book, and it made more sense. I think I would have been completely lost had I not watched that series, and I had to watch the
Mhm.
series twice to really get it, and I love everything about the series except the last season. The
Yeah.
last season just but the
Yeah.
one thing about the last season or the last 2 or 3 seasons is they had run out of source material
Right.
because he has not finished, past, I believe, season 5 is where his book ended.
Yeah.
So the writers kind of got loosely based what he kind of told them what the direction would be, but
Mhm.
I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but I don't buy the ending. I'm just going
Yeah,
to
I
say
didn't I
that right
agree with you. I didn't love the ending. Not the whole final season, but I didn't love the last couple of episodes.
But again, I would give anything to have that talent to come up with that final season. So, I mean, again, it's opinion. Everyone has an opinion. Someone would be like, "Oh, the final season was the best."
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that whole series was just so rich.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those things that you can watch over and over again and see new things every time you watch it.
So real quick, what's our do now before we wrap up this episode?
So one thing I want to mention before the do now is I do have some source links on the show notes about writing books and adaptations. So if you're interested in them, you can check those out. But I tell my students to do this. I do this with my students. Choose a companion book and film and really read the book. Pay close attention to the way the story develops, the way the characters develop, what the story arc is, and align that with how the film treats that.
Yeah.
I think if you do that, I think that's going to help your writing, whether your book ever gets made into a film or doesn't. I attribute, a lot of people say to me, your books, both of them really should be made into movies. And I think the reason is because I've studied film for so long that I see things visually, like Hope was talking about. I also hear things in my head, like dialogues going back and forth. So I think it's that just, I don't know, well-rounded, like all those 5 senses that just kind of come to the surface when I'm writing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just so everyone knows that you can find us on Spotify, on Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and on Instagram. And Donna, can you also tell us what is our next episode? Because this one is going to be a very interesting one, I think.
Yeah, we were both inspired by an editing episode that we did a few episodes back, and really wanted to dive into what makes a strong opening. What are some things that you should be doing at the very beginning of your book to hook your readers?
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. So as everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and until next time.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.